I'm Rich Lieberman. It is Thursday, and I want to apologize from a headline in my last broadcast. As you all pointed out, I put in Laura Owens and I didn't say anything about it. Not because I don't have anything to say, just that I was so preoccupied with other lots and lots of things and subject matters that I've been working on. And as some of you know, most of you know, I've been sick. I caught this cold again, and then I caught another cold and mucus and congestion. I feel a lot better, but the voice is still getting back, so bear with me. I'm going to talk about Laura Owens, and I'm going to try to be as germane, as upfront, not that I haven't been otherwise, as possible. I think you'll understand why I've been a little bit reluctant to talk, but I'm going to talk now. And I'm probably going to piss off a few people, but story of my life, right? When you're dealing with something as sort of all encompassing as this is, where one right thing could lead to a bunch of people saying, fuck you. And one other thing, both things could be completely honest, then you're going to piss other people off. That's the nature of the beast. So what I want to say is this. First, I want to go over the outlying issue, and that is Laura Owens, who I've never met. Laura is the younger daughter of Ron Owens. Ron used to be a KGO radio talk show host for over 4 decades. And Ron basically retired from KGO in 2016. So almost 10 years now, and moved from San Francisco back over to Scottsdale, Arizona. Just a little background. And has raised 2 daughters, one of whom is in New York and the other who lives with him in Scottsdale. He and his wife, Jan Black. And I haven't followed the whole story, but now I've read as much and talked to Ron himself and Jan Black, Ron's wife, and have tried to at first stay out of all this for reasons which I'll explain in a second. But then I thought, you can't do that. You got to be a little open about it. Not that I have anything to hide. I don't. But I want to clear up some things. I have read the criminal indictment put forth by Arizona and its attorney general. And I'm very, very concerned because I read the charges having to do with Ron's daughter. And I have a little bit of a conflict because as a person who had a very strong bond with Ron growing up, got to know him very well. We had a very publicized divorce, if you will, because I thought Ron did not act right when the Cumulus first iteration, when they massacred KGO, took place. And I thought Ron was frankly not professional in the manner in which he handled all of that, including his own undoing there. I'm just laying all of this out so you get everything. I got upset with Ron. I frankly was angered the manner in which he handled it. And I lampooned and satirized and criticized Ron for the better part of 10 years. Most of the time writing it before I started broadcasting here on YouTube. So I'm far from a Ron kisser, was far from caving in or bowing or doing anything basically to kiss Ron's tuchus, to use a metaphor. I also was not in any way, shape, or form given any kind of money by Ron or Jan Black or anybody not to say anything. I just have been uncomfortable talking about it. As I said, I wasn't very familiar with this case involving Laura Owens and these 5 male, shall we say, let me redact that. These men that were involved in accusations made by Laura Owens. And yes, I do, present tense, do find them troubling, which is why I guess this it made its way to a criminal court in the form of indictments. I want to emphasize again, I have spoken to Ron and Jan Black, his wife, and explained to them that some of this doesn't look right, doesn't smell right. They have maintained to me, and I'm no judge, I'm not a lawyer, I am just another party in this whole thing that has tried to get to the bottom of this without really getting into the weeds, the so-called weeds of the various cases. Although I do think there are very, very serious allegations here having to do with Laura Owens. Now, here's what I'm going to point out, among other things, and which I pointed out from the very beginning. And by the way, Ron and Jan Black have maintained their defense for their daughter, Laura Owens. I believe them, and have maintained innocence and have professed a feeling of antagonism and whatever put forth by the male people involved in this case, the male characters. I don't know what to make of it. I agree with the other side that some of these accusations are disturbing, put forth by Laura Owens. We've not yet heard the truth. We've had a lot of allegations. I will say this. About a few months ago, when the article came out in the Chronicle via SF Gate and the Mercury News of Ron and Jan's plight, their financial plight having to do with medical expenses, having to do with various expenses that they say and that they maintained, caught them into a unfamiliar territory, and they asked for help in the form of financial help. Soon a GoFundMe page was set up, and they raised about $150,000. Now, there have been accusations that perhaps some of that money was used to pay lawyers or a lawyer having to do with the case, specifically Laura Owens. Ron, again, and Jan maintain that no funds from that GoFundMe page were used to pay a lawyer, and that, in fact, the lawyer initially took this case pro bono and was not paid anything. That's what they say. I believe them, but on the other hand, here's what my main funk about that is. Why was that not brought up in the article? I'm not talking about the latest article, but the two initial articles that talked about Ron's plight, his medical issues, the Parkinson's, the financial turbulence, if you will, that brought him to this point, and Jan too, of financial quagmire, of asking for help, which he did, in which some of you, his friends, you guys, some of whom, donated a tune of anywhere from 120, I don't know the exact figure, but it was well over $100,000. Why that was not brought out in the article, in the SF Gate piece and the Mercury News, nor the case involving Ron's daughter, a very painful subject, to me, as I said back then, and I'll repeat it again, is journalistic malpractice. You have to address that. You have to at least mention it. The author of that piece in the Chronicle, SF Gate, Aidan Visseri, I believe is his name, never mentioned it, nor did the author in the Mercury News. Should have been mentioned. Now, once again, they have maintained that none of that money was used to pay for the lawyer expenses, the legal expenses, what have you, or at least a portion of it. I believe that money can be, and the account on that can be documented and looked for any kind of possible malfeasance. They maintain they have not and continue to say as much. Doesn't make them feel, or doesn't make them right, doesn't put them off of any kind of responsibility. They maintain they did not spend. I believe them. If the other side, I'm sure they have the means to do this, wants to check that, they seem to indicate, they being Ron and Jan, go ahead. Finally, I read the indictments, and I too find it peculiar. I find it odd, and I find it deeply unsettling that the Laura Owens accusations involving one of these characters, the ex-bachelor from that program, who seems to be credible, maybe has followers who perhaps are not, but in any event, I too share a whole lot of just basic want for information, dare I say, the truth. And I know eventually this will all come out. I hope it will come out. Folks, I haven't gotten involved because, and I've said this a lot, I don't really get into these, TMZ type stories. And I'm not trying to be holier than thou when I say that. It just doesn't interest me. I wasn't even aware that Laura Owens was involved in this kind of news story taking place. I didn't become not aware of it because I wasn't interested. I just simply, first off, had no idea what was taking place and didn't become involved. I've since done a lot of research, and frankly, I don't know where to go to. And I'm not saying that to, again, form any kind of appeasement of Ron Owens or Laura, who I've never spoken to. I've only spoken to Ron and Jan Black. I don't know who to believe. I have my own leanings, but I do agree, and I'm saying it publicly, I would like to shed light via the powers that be that hopefully will get to the truth. I find it very disturbing that the GoFundMe money was not put forth in the articles on SF Gate having to do with Ron and his plight. That to me was odd. It was also not the right journalistically wise thing to do. You had many people, past, present tense, questioning whether or not their money was being used to help Ron and Jan offset financial obligations having to do with medical expenses and doctors and all that. It would have been a lot more, shall we say, duly noted and ethical to announce, at least, or put forth in the article that Ron had this problem dealing with his daughter, which, again, I will say publicly, I am conflicted because there's nothing in my dealings with Ron over the years to say what he maintains and says he's innocent. I find it odd, as did Jan Black point out, the complete innocence. But I don't know the daughter. And I know what she said will ultimately, hopefully, be proven in their favor or the other side's favor, and we will get to the bottom of this. Okay, I have my own feelings, but big deal. What are my feelings? They're just like yours. I will say, hold off your final thoughts. This is a cliche. It's going to sound self-serving. So be it. Why don't we wait till the evidence comes out? Why don't we get a clear picture of both sides stating their case as they have? And then we can make a decision, and you can make a decision based on what you feel. I have no, as they say, dog in the fight. I hope to God Ron is saying what he's been telling me and others. I hope to God Jan Black has been so vehement, so pronounced, and so angry in her denial via her daughter's involvement in these accusations that I do find, again, quite curious. And I have to say that without knowing the other side. I've heard the other side's arguments, and frankly, they are compelling. So finally, let's just hear it out, folks. See what it evolves, see the evidence, and then we can make our own decision, one way or the other.